Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Canada C3 Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. A little background about the C3 for those who may be joining us for the first time. The Canada C3 is a signature project for Canada's 150th anniversary, and the centerpiece is an epic 150-day sailing journey from Toronto to Victoria via the Northwest Passage that's going to connect Canadians from coast to coast to coast and inspire a deeper understanding of our land, our peoples, the past, present, and future of our country. The expedition is divided into 15 legs and will have a cross-section of Canadians on board, including scientists, artists, Indigenous elders, historians, community leaders, youth, journalists, and educators. So right now, we're nearing the end of the 12th leg of the journey, and I believe we're back in Canadian waters, just off the coast of British Columbia. And I'm excited today to be joined by two of the youth ambassadors on the C3. So we're joined today by Chukita Gruben. She's a 22-year-old and lives in her hometown of Chukita, Northwest Territories. She keeps physically active with traditional activities on land, but also enjoys reading, traveling, exploring, and creating artwork. And we also have Kenny from this town, Prince Edward Island, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Prince Edward Island. He's a member of the Prime Minister's Youth Council and brings with him experience living abroad in both Spain and France. So it's so great to have the two of you joining us from the C3 today.
Yes, nice to be here. My name is Chukita Gruben, and I'm from Chukita, Northwest Territories. I'm an evaluator, and I currently work as a secretary for the Chukita District Education Authority, and I'm also on the Chukita Community Corporation Board as the director. So I'm in a very political position in my community, and also in the youth leadership role.
And yes, thank you for having us with you today. Really great to be here. My name is Dana from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. I work as a communications officer for the University of Prince Edward Island, and as was mentioned, I serve with about 20 other youth on the Prime Minister's Youth Council. So I work to come and hear voices from you guys and help relay those voices and messages to the. We're happy to be here. Why don't we tell you a little bit about where we've come from, though? So as Cheetah mentioned, we came from Chukita on September 10th, and we went all the way around the coast of Alaska. So we came through the Bering Strait by Russia, and before we did that, we stopped in one of our territories, the Yukon Territory, where we went to Herschel Island. It was a really cool experience. From Herschel Island, we made our way to several communities around Alaska, and now we've made our way back to Canadian soil. I don't know if there's any you'd like to highlight in particular.
Well, one of the major things we got to see is the cultures, Indigenous cultures, and also the climate change impact, and just learning from one another as we went from coast to coast.
And one of my favorite things, really, as we went from the Arctic through the Northern Pacific and stopped at so many communities, was actually engaging with youth, not unlike yourselves, and hearing from those youth about what they do in their communities and what they're passionate about, what they do for fun. And to be honest, it was different and then so much of the same all at the same time.
Yeah.
So you've been on for about probably just under 10 days now. Can you tell the process that you had to go through to be selected to join the C3?
Yeah, so we've been on for a little more. Yeah,
18 days about there?
We're on day 18. This is the longest of the 15 legs. And the selection process required us to write a few different essays and to really write about what theme from the Canada C3 and the marking Canada's 150th year of Confederation, that what theme meant the most to us. So which did you write about, Chukita?
I wrote about youth engagement in particular. So in my community, I want to get more youth engaged and to become the next leaders in but wherever they want to go in life, that they are capable of being whoever and whatever they like to be.
And I chose to write about reconciliation with Indigenous communities. I felt that the four themes, so the other three were youth engagement, diversity, inclusion, and the environment and sustainability. And I found that they all kept kind of pointing back to reconciliation in my mind, and that in order to achieve or work on any of those other three themes, we had to address reconciliation. So yeah, we did that. There was also there was an interview piece to it as well for some of us. So we actually had to Skype in, and we had the opportunity to speak with the selection committee. And but leading up to it, I think Chukita and I both agree that a lot of it, our background came from being engaged with youth in our communities and serving and learning from others in our communities about how we can have a positive impact on the lives of those around us.
And also what Canada would look like in the future. So as well on reconciliation with the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous people, because I feel like from learning about like residential school and the impacts it has caused, and it really is an eye-opener and brings understanding to people why the Indigenous people really want to fight for, well, so why the Indigenous people, it's important for our youth because we want to bring in diversity and inclusion, and I see that in Canada's future, and also with reconciliation.
All right, awesome. Well, first of all, congratulations, guys. It's obviously pretty exciting to be selected, and I imagine you're having just an amazing time. Can you talk a little bit about what day-to-day life is like on the C3, living on the ship? And I know many days you haven't seen land.
Yes, well, we've learned one phrase, and that is flexibility is key. Every day is an adventure on the expedition because there are many variables, factors that will direct really the journey we take. So some of the stops that we had anticipated to take along the way, for example, the Pribilof Islands, ended up turning into a whole new stop, because with sea conditions and different routes we have to take to make sure everyone's comfortable and we can arrive safely and comfortably, we've shaken things up. So for example, yesterday we had a wonderful visit with the Nass Valley, and that was not initially on our itinerary, but they welcomed us with open arms. It was a really great experience. So yeah, that's a bit of that piece. Maybe Chukita can talk to you about some of the sea days and the living conditions here aboard the Polar Prince.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time connecting with one another. We had sessions and sharing stories, and also like with LGBT, and also with the scientists and the musicians, and it was so great to learn from one another and build these relationships, and also talk about Canada and the 4 themes. So we have lifelong friends and feels like family on this trip. And when we go to the other communities and not only getting to see their beautiful land and seeing the environment with the animals, it's nice to seeing the zoo. It's like a natural zoo. And like the people, they're so welcoming, and the students were like so respectful, and it's really great, like the way they put on performances, whether it was their cultural dancing or just serving us like with a feast and warm welcomes, and showing their unique beauty of their communities. Like so from Tuk we went to Herschel Island, and then from Herschel Island we went to Point Hope, Alaska, and we were supposed to go to Point Barrow, Alaska, but we had to go around onto Nome, Alaska, and we got to tour like their museum and cultural center. And like I'm from Tuktoyaktuk, so I come from a very cultural community, and seeing like from Point Hope to Nome, like from Herschel Island to Point Hope to Nome, like just how so much similarities with my culture, and so much respect. And also like it's interesting, like with the you could learn so much with like the mining that happened, the history in Nome, and then from Nome.
Yeah, we went gold digging in Nome. Yeah. We went to the beach with some of our tools on a break, and we were able to sift through the sand and the rocks and look for gold as the gold rush kind of took place through Yukon and these communities in Alaska. And maybe I'll point out too, so like if you want to know like how we get to these communities, we can't always dock. So sometimes we use Zodiacs, which are these not huge boats, but we can fit a fair amount of people. I think there's usually 8 of us in a Zodiac, 12 up to 12.
Maximum.
And so, for example, when we left Tuktoyaktuk, our first stop, we were told that the ship was on the horizon somewhere, but it couldn't dock very closely to the actual land because the water was so shallow. And I think it was about an hour ride, Zodiac, some of us probably wondering what the heck we were doing here. Cold with the wet mist and the splashing water. Some of us were soaked. So it was really nice to arrive on the Polar Prince and warm up and be greeted by the hospitality here. And like a day kind of in the life, you know, some days you shower, some days you take a break from the shower, some days you eat a lot of food. We're fed really well. And we just kind of make our day is really led by each other. So we all have different backgrounds and experience like you students would. You have something you really like, and you get to share that with the team. So I compare it kind of like summer camp. If you've ever been to summer camp, you wake up, you get freshened up, and then you make your way down to the mess hall and the food's there for you. And then you have an activity and a learning and growing experience. Sometimes it's a physical activity. We had sword fighting one day. You can see pictures online. We've done yoga on the wavy boat. So those are some of the fun activities. And then sometimes we have really deep, serious discussions about things that really matter. Like Cheetah talked about the LGBTQ community and diversity and inclusion. So to be honest, just like camp, at the end of every day, you fall asleep on your pillow. You're really tired.
Yeah.
Sounds absolutely amazing. And that you're making the best of your time on the ship. So the Canada C3 is pretty incredible. They're doing lots of science and stopping communities, and it's really going to leave an impacting legacy. So when your time ends on the ship, as a youth ambassador, how do you continue the legacy of the C3?
Well, Cheetah and I both, we started off before we even arrived and met each other and the rest of our participants. We went and spoke with other classrooms like you. And to be honest, at the time, I didn't really have the answers to some of the questions, like what will you eat? Because I wasn't there yet. Or what type of science will you undertake? So now I'm really excited. I think I went around to about 6 schools in Prince Edward Island, and now I get to go back and share that knowledge. But not only with those organized moments where I have a group of students like you with questions and who get to hear some stories, but just in my everyday life, and it's passing those stories on through conversation that we can make those changes with regards to any of the 4 themes we've talked about.
And me as well. So I'm from Tuk, and I'm living there currently. So my goal after the C3 cruise ship is done, I would like to bring it back to my community and let my people know, like, there's so much out there and there's so much potential in my community. And like I said, I'm in a leadership role, so I met like some scientists that are willing to collaborate with me and bring some science projects to my community. So we're working together in ways like in ways where we can enhance these youth to get more opportunities. So I should touch on a background for Tuk, because it's a community of like 850 people, and jobs are limited, and it's quite an isolated community. But the highway is opening November 2017, and before that we were only able to get to Tuk by the ice road or by flying. And so it's going to open a gateway, and I need to prepare my community, and I need to get more people engaged and the youth engaged, because they're going to be going to school and they need these experiences, such as like we need more businesses happening. Like we need cafes, we need restaurants, we need hotels. We don't have a lot of these necessities. So I also met with an entrepreneur who was gave me some background education on what he did, and how he helped his community who are interested in running a business to encourage it and educate them in that sense. So I just taking ideas and I'm able to bring it home, but also like, it's not only for my community, but it's for whether they want to leave for school, because this Canada is big and it's beautiful from the looks of it. Obviously it is. So I'm just really eager to get this, what I've learned out there and starting to use it.
And to Chukita's note there on how big and beautiful it is, you look at it on a map, but sometimes it's hard to really know. We started up where there were no trees growing. We were above the tree line, which you might have learned about in science. And so for me, that was a first, coming from Prince Edward Island where we have so many trees. It was such a shock. And to be honest, I started to miss the trees. We made our way south and they started to pop up really small and get big. Now we're back in beautiful British Columbia where they're big, beautiful evergreens. And some of the nature and science this morning, we have a morning briefing every morning where we talk about what the day should look like and different things that happened in the day before. Today we talked about phytoplankton, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll do my best. But basically, about 2 weeks ago, we had one of the crew members of the ship who makes sure we get from place to place run into our hangout area late at night and tell a few of us there's glowing jellyfish outside. And we were like, what? Everybody was outside on the deck looking at these beautiful glowing creatures in the water. There were no scientists awake though. So the next day we told the scientists and we went outside and they were again, but they looked a little different. And they said, those aren't glowing jellyfish. We were pretty sad. A few weeks later, so we've been on the ship for a while, we discovered these guys again, because the second night they didn't look like the first night, and this night they looked like the jellyfish again, nice and round, and they were glowing in the water. So last night, this has been kind of a thread throughout our entire leg of like 12. The scientists went out in the fjord. We're in really deep waters and land here, and they found them. They actually captured some of these jellyfish to study them, and I don't know. I was really happy to learn that they were jellyfish. It's pretty cool. And what happens is when they're shook and they're bioluminescent. So what that means is they've absorbed this phytoplankton, this chemical or so, this biological piece, and they glow. It's pretty cool to see. You can't really capture a picture, but maybe you can YouTube it sometime. Glowing jellyfish.
All right, amazing. And I can hear some of the sounds in the background. You're on the bridge of the ship right now, which I'm sure is a busy place. Before we meet our classrooms, are you able just to maybe move the computer so we can have a little view out the window and see what you're seeing?
See. Can you see that?
Yes, a very different view from the last time we connected. It was a couple days ago in open ocean, so this is a very different view from the C3. Awesome. Well, let's meet some of our classrooms and we'll get some questions for you guys. So our first class is joining us from Kitchener, Ontario, grade 6 students with Mrs. Schaefer. Let me turn your microphone on. All right, your mic is on.
Hey, okay, you can stand up. This is Roxy. Get down so you can see. Bend down a little bit.
Hi, Roxy.
Hi.
Come a little closer.
Have you experienced any risky situations other than the jellyfish?
Other than the jellyfish. A risky situation.
No, but we're safe. But we did have some sea days, like where the waves were so extreme and rocking the boat, and some of us got seasick. And also, like on our hikes, individually, some are more risky than others. But that's all. It's really safe on this ship. And
they take really good care of us and they teach us the proper safety. But on the note of the high waves, they were 3 to 4 meters one night, and you're in your bed and you rock back and forth like you're being cradled. And on that note, when you're going up and down the stairs, because there's several floors to the ship, you have to be very careful. For example, I slipped the other day and fell down a few stairs. So that's kind of risky. So yeah. Thank you for your question,
All right.
Roxy.
Thank you, Roxy. Do you guys have another question in Kitchener? I see lots of hands.
Yeah. Sure.
What is it like being on a ship that long?
Oh my gosh, so what's time? Like, it's so amazing. Our days are so filled with so much activities, and if it's not on the ship, we're out there communicating with communities. So time is flying, and it's amazing, and we're enjoying it.
It is, and it's so jam-packed that sometimes you think, wow, Tuktoyaktuk felt like 100 years ago. But the other piece is when you're on the ship, it's like it's weird. It's when you're on this long, then you get back on land. We've had the most sea days out of any other leg, and then you get back on land after 2 days at sea, and you kind of wobble. So that's kind of what, that's one of the effects. You're like, oh, solid ground again. This is weird. Yeah.
All right.
Great question. Thank you.
Let's jump to another classroom now. Let's go to Edmonton, Alberta. We have a group of grade 5 students joining us with Mr. Catalan. Let me turn your microphone on.
Hello. Hi. We have Isaiah, and he has a question. So Isaiah, if you just go down on your knees, there you go. What's your question, Isaiah?
How many places have you been to?
Great question, Isaiah. Let's count. We started in Chukita, Herschel Island, Point Hope, which they call Tikirak.
And then Nome, Alaska. And then Unalaska.
Unalaska, yeah, which is also called Dutch Harbor, so that's 5.
Yes.
And then Prince Rupert.
Wait, Kodiak.
Oh, I forgot Kodiak. We were there for 2 days. Like a Kodiak bear. And then
Prince Rupert. And then the Nass Valley.
Nass Valley.
So those are 8 places, but we have crossed seas. The Beaufort,
Chukchi, Bering Sea. We've done like 4 time zones, I think. Yeah. So we're great. We've been to a lot of places in a short period of time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Great question. It's pretty amazing. You guys get to visit some places that maybe not a lot of Canadians are going to get that opportunity. So it's neat. You're going to be able to bring back some of those experiences to your communities. All right, Edmonton, grade 5. Do you have another question for us?
Yeah. So how many animals did you see?
Wow, a lot. Let's start. We've seen otters. We've seen bowhead whales.
We've seen a lot of sea lions.
Oh my gosh, sea lions.
So, there was a walrus, and
what else did we see?
Lots of birds. It's crazy. If you're out in the middle of the ocean, you can't see land, and there's birds flying by. The jellyfish count.
Some seen muskox.
Oh yeah, the muskox.
Yes, and oh my goodness, we've seen so many animals.
Oh, eagles. We saw a lot of eagles in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were everywhere, like pigeons in my town. So we've got 8, but I think there were more. And today we're going to look for grizzly bears after our talk with you. So hopefully we see some. Keep your fingers crossed.
All right. I'm sure the students will do that for you. It'd be great to see a couple photos come back. Let's see. Our next classroom, let's go to Mrs. Penneber's group. They're joining us from Gatineau in Quebec. So they're a grade 11 classroom. Let me turn your microphone on for you. Okay, it's on.
Can you hear us now? Hello?
Hear you now.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We have to unplug the microphone, so bonjour.
Bonjour.
On aurait une question. We will have a question. Do you speak French?
Oui, moi je parle français.
Oui, super. But we first have a question in English.
D'accord.
Hi. We wanted to know if you eat any traditional food from the places you visit.
Yes, we have. Oh my gosh. So yesterday we had a delicacy of seafood at the Nass Valley. So there was crab and there was like these fish patties and just
crab patties, cod patties, halibut lasagna.
It was a feast there. And also we tried in Point Hope. I got to try the bowhead whale. I think it was mukdak.
Yeah. From the bowhead whale. Yeah. And then we were in Herschel Island in the Yukon, and we had caribou stew, I think. Was it caribou stew?
Oh yeah. Yes, caribou stew and bannock
bread. Yeah.
Traditional bannock.
Yeah, we've gained weight. We've eaten a lot of food.
Is there another question? Une autre question? Isabelle? En français? Ouais. We have a question in French.
D'accord, vas-y.
Est-ce que votre voyage est comme vous l'avez expecté?
Imaginez.
Je comprends pas.
Is your trip was how you expected?
Oui. À mon avis, j'avais pas vraiment des expectations parce que c'était un voyage, le nôtre, de 20 jours. Donc, il y a tellement de choses qui j'ai su qu'ils vont... Et vraiment, je savais pas que les participants seraient tellement comme une famille. Donc, cela, c'était une surprise pour moi. On est vraiment proches maintenant. Et c'est... Mais...
All right, well, we've had a really good connection so far, but they are on a ship and they are far away from any kind of cell phone signal or landline. So we're just going to give it a second and see if the connection clears up for us. But how's everyone doing so far? If you're having a good hangout, give me a thumbs up. Oh, good. Lots of thumbs up. That's what I like to see. So we'll just wait a second and see if the connection frees up. Looks like they're still frozen. So what you might not know is on the C3, there is, if you look at a picture online of the Canada C3 vessel, there's this big white sphere on top. Looks like a big dome. And in that dome is a satellite. And so that allows them to broadcast from the middle of the ocean, from parts in northern Canada where you normally couldn't. So even with the water moving, this satellite, we've had really good connections for a while. Things will freeze up a little bit. So let's see if things will open up for us and come back in. And it looks like that might be what they're trying to do right now. So we'll just give them a moment to come back to us, because we still have to visit our classroom in Brampton, our grade 7s from Roberta Bondar Public School. So we definitely don't want to leave your questions out. And what I'll do too, well, just to tell them that they have blinked out and can they try coming in and back for us. So just give me one. All right. While we give them a little bit of moment, we can talk a little bit about some of the other Hangouts we've done. So if you go online and search Canada C3 Hangouts, you'll find quite a few we've done so far. So just a couple of days ago, we were talking to Mark Edwards from the Royal Alberta Museum. And so he's probably really excited to maybe see grizzly bears today because he studies mammals. And in particular, he was telling us about grizzly bears and a little bit about polar bears and how there's been cases where the two have had overlapping territories and resulted in a few bears that they call pizzly bears, so a hybrid between a grizzly bear and a polar bear. So that was pretty neat to talk about. And then just before that, we had a great connection with a scientist who was studying microplastics. So what you may or may not know is that in our oceans, a lot of the plastics that we use on land, they make their way to the ocean. And they don't actually break down. Your food might break down. They break down into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. And then those get eaten by fish and other small creatures. And then they make their way up through the food line or the food chain. And that's a big problem because it's toxic to eat too much plastics. So that's another cool hangout that you can check out. So what I've just noticed is the C3 has disappeared from our screen, and that's a good thing. That means they've exited the hangout. So very likely they're trying to restart and come back into the hangout with us. So we'll give them another moment. But while we wait, let's visit a couple of our classrooms. So let's go to our classroom who's waiting very patiently, our grade 7s at Roberta Bondar Public School. How you guys doing?
Good.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your Thursday. I'm curious about what you guys have been up to today.
Terry Fox won.
That's right. So I'm here in a school today as well, and they had their Terry Fox run in the morning. So that's a very important day in a lot of schools around Canada today. Let's jump over to our class in Kitchener. Did you guys have your Terry Fox run today?
Terry Fox tomorrow.
All right. So yours is coming up tomorrow. What about Edmonton? Do you guys have a Terry Fox run coming up?
Today.
Very excited. Were you saying you did yours today?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Gotcha. So it's still coming up. Very cool. All right. Well, let me pop back into my email and see if I got a message back from the C3. Okay. Darn, no luck so far. So we're going to give them another minute and we'll see if they're able to get back in, but it could just be that our luck has run out for today. Maybe there's something going on with the satellite connection, but it was nice that we did have the connection for as long as we did. And our school, grade 7s with Roberta Bondar Public School, if you want to type me some questions, either via email or there's a little blue chat sidebar on the left of the Hangout screen. And if you send me some questions, I'll make sure they get to the ship and email back to you so that you can get some of your questions answered. And in fact, of any of the classrooms, Kitchener, Edmonton, if you guys want to send more questions, send them to me via email and I'll make sure they get to the ship and they come right back to your inbox for you. So we'll give them one more minute and then I think we might have to call the Hangout for today, which is a bummer, but we had a really good connection for over 30 minutes. So I think we should be a little bit excited about that too. And so there's 2 more legs of the C3. So as our youth ambassadors were sharing with us, leg 12 is just coming to an end. And so there's 2 legs to go. And coming up in October, we've just released some of the hangouts that are coming up. So we'll be talking about the marine environment. We'll be talking to a nice hangout at the end to kind of wrap up and talk about what was learned about the 150 days on the C3. We'll be meeting with a scientist from the Royal Museum of British Columbia, and he'll talk to us about invertebrates, so small microorganisms, and why they're so important in the water. So there's lots of hangouts still coming up from the Canada C3. But we'll give them another moment, and I can see people up at the camera who are typing in some questions. So please do send me your questions via email. But what we can do before we sign out is I can turn the microphones on, and I'll give you a chance to say goodbye and thank you to Dana and Chukita who joined us today. Let's see. Okay, so it doesn't look like they're going to come back in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on the microphone. So if you guys, nice and loud, if you enjoyed your hangout today with the youth ambassadors, can you say a big goodbye and thank you to them, because they'll be able to watch this on the ship later. So microphones are coming on. Nice and loud. All right. Well, again, a big apology to our classroom at Roberta Bondar Public School. We will get your questions in. Please send them in, and I will make sure they make it to the ship. So again, everybody, thanks for hanging out today, and look forward to more Canada C3 Hangouts in October. Thanks, everyone.